When you are no longer needed, there is a moment no one warns you about. It's not loud. It doesn't come with an argument or a goodbye. It comes when you realize no one needs you the way they used to. The phone still exists, but it doesn't ring for advice anymore. Life still moves forward, just not with your guidance. And you tell yourself, this is normal, that this is what success looks like, that this means you did your job well. But something inside you doesn't feel relieved. Because being needed was never about being in control. It was about waking up knowing your presence mattered to someone, that your experience still had weight, that your life still leaned into other lives. When that stops, nothing replaces it. There is no conversation about the loss, no acknowledgement of the grief. Just a quiet question your heart is almost afraid to ask. If no one needs me anymore, who am I now? Losing people hurts, but losing the feeling of being needed can quietly undo how you see yourself. 1. The quiet shift from being needed to being optional. You don't notice it right away. There isn't a clear moment where someone tells you, we don't need you anymore. It shows up in small things. They stop calling to ask what you think. They stop checking in before making decisions. They tell you what happened after everything is already settled. You hear about problems only after they've been solved. At first, you feel proud. They're capable now. They're handling things on their own. This is how it's supposed to be. But pride fades faster than people admit, because what replaces it is a strange kind of emptiness. You realize no one is waiting for your input. No one is pausing to hear your experience. No one is leaning on the years you've lived. You're still present, but your presence is no longer required. And that difference matters more than people realize. Because being needed once gave structure to your days. It told you when to show up. It told you where you belonged. It told you that your life was still woven into other lives. When that stops, there is no replacement role. You're expected to step back quietly, to be understanding, to not mention the loss. So you do. But inside, a question begins forming, slowly, carefully. When I'm no longer needed, where do I place myself now? You didn't lose importance overnight. You slowly became someone life could move forward without asking. 2. When your days no longer ask anything of you. When you stop being needed, your days begin to feel different. Not empty in an obvious way, not dramatic, just unclaimed. You wake up and nothing is waiting for you. No call that needs answering, no problem that needs your judgment, no situation that quietly depends on your presence. At first, you tell yourself, this is rest, that you've earned this quiet, that it's finally time to slow down. But rest feels different when it's chosen. This quiet wasn't chosen. It arrived without asking. And slowly, something unsettling happens. Your days lose their shape. Time stretches in ways that feel heavier than busyness ever did. Hours pass without leaving a mark. You reach the end of the day and struggle to say what you were for. You're still doing things, still moving, still filling time, but nothing is pulling you forward. Nothing is waiting on you. And that absence begins to echo. Because for so long, being needed gave your life direction. It told you where to aim your care, where to place your attention, where your presence mattered most. Without that direction, you don't just lose routine. You lose the quiet assurance that your life is still necessary to someone else. And that loss doesn't announce itself. It just settles in, like a question your heart keeps asking without daring to say out loud. If nothing needs me today, why does today still matter? You didn't just lose responsibility. You lost the feeling that your days were still being waited for. 3. When you start questioning your own worth. When your days no longer ask anything of you, your mind begins to fill the silence. Not with answers, but with questions. Quiet ones. Questions you never had to face when someone still needed you. You start wondering if your value was always tied to what you could do for others. If the care you gave, the responsibility you carried, the way people relied on you, was that the only proof you had that you mattered? You notice how careful you've become. You hesitate before offering help. You stop sharing thoughts unless someone asks directly. You pull your hands back before they reach forward, because somewhere inside you, a fear has taken root. What if my presence is no longer useful? What if I'm just in the way now? You don't say these thoughts out loud. They feel embarrassing, selfish, unworthy of attention. So you keep them inside, and the longer they stay there, the more they shape how you see yourself. You begin to measure your worth by how little you ask for, by how easily life seems to move on without you, by how quietly you can exist without causing inconvenience. This is how worth starts to feel conditional, not gone, just fragile. Something you remember in theory but no longer feel in your body. And that is when the loss deepens, because it's no longer about being needed. It's about wondering who you are when no one is. Losing a role is painful, but losing the sense that you still matter without it is where the silence becomes dangerous. 4. Being loved, but no longer leaned on. They still love you. They check in. They ask how you're feeling. They say the right things. And yet, something essential is missing. Because love doesn't always mean reliance. They don't bring their worries to you anymore. They don't call when they're unsure. They don't look to you when decisions feel heavy. They've learned to stand on their own. And while part of you understands this, another part of you feels quietly displaced. You sit close enough to hear everything, but far enough to know you're no longer being leaned on. You're present, but not essential, included, but not depended on. And that distinction cuts deeper than people realize, because being relied on once told you who you were. It gave your days direction. It gave your presence weight. It gave your life a reason to be called forward. Now, without that reliance, you're expected to accept the change with grace, to be supportive, to not mention the loss, to understand that this is normal. But grief doesn't disappear just because it's expected. It waits quietly, because you're not grieving love. You're grieving the moment when someone last looked at you and thought, I need you. Being loved feels comforting, but being needed is what once made you feel real. 5. How you quietly learn to take up less space. When you realize you're no longer needed, you don't confront anyone. You adjust. You start watching yourself more carefully. You listen for signs that you might be intruding. You pay attention to how quickly conversations move on, and slowly, you begin to take up less space. You stop offering help unless someone asks directly. You hold back advice that once came naturally. You tell yourself, they've got it handled. Not because you don't care, but because you don't want to be unnecessary. You don't want to slow anyone down. You don't want to seem outdated. You don't want to feel like you're in the way. So you make yourself easier to ignore. You wait longer before speaking. You shorten your thoughts. You leave pauses unfilled. And the world adjusts quickly. No one stops to pull you back in. No one notices the distance growing. Because from the outside, you look calm, supportive, understanding. But inside, something is shrinking. Not your love, not your care, your sense of belonging. You begin to feel like an observer in a life you once helped shape. And the most painful part is this. You didn't step back because you wanted to. You stepped back because it felt safer than discovering no one needed you close anymore. You didn't disappear loudly. You learned how to fade without making anyone uncomfortable. 6. When you start feeling like a burden. At some point, the question shifts. It's no longer, why doesn't anyone need me? It becomes, what if I'm a burden now? You notice how carefully you move through people's lives. You hesitate before calling. You rehearse what you'll say. Then decide it's not important enough. You tell yourself, they're busy, they have their own lives. I don't want to be one more thing they have to deal with. So you carry things alone. You handle problems quietly. You manage discomfort without mentioning it. You learn to need less, or at least to appear that way. Not because you don't feel the weight, but because asking feels risky. as if needing something now would confirm what you secretly fear, that your presence requires effort, that your existence comes with responsibility, that you are no longer a gift, but a task. So you make yourself lighter. You apologize before speaking. You minimize your concerns. You say, it's nothing, even when it isn't, and no one corrects you. Because from the outside, you seem strong, independent, self-sufficient. But inside, you're grieving the version of yourself who once felt welcome simply by showing up, the one who didn't have to earn space by asking for nothing. You don't feel heavy because you ask for too much. You feel heavy because you're afraid your presence has become something others have to carry. 7. You are always more than what you were needed for. Here is something this loss rarely lets you see. Your worth was never meant to live only inside usefulness. For a long time, being needed gave your life shape. It told you when to wake up, where to direct your care, who you were in the story. So when that need disappears, it feels like you disappeared with it. But you didn't. What ended was a function, not a life. You were never just the problem solver, never just the steady one, never just the person people leaned on when things felt uncertain. Those roles showed part of you, but not all of you. There is still value in the way you listen without interrupting, in the way you notice what others miss, in the way your presence slows a room without asking for attention. These are not loud forms of worth. They don't announce themselves. They don't demand recognition. And in a world that measures value by speed and output, quiet worth is often overlooked. But overlooked does not mean gone. You are still someone who carries depth, who understands patience, who knows how to stay when things are uncomfortable. That kind of value doesn't disappear when no one asks for it. It simply waits, often unnoticed, but still intact. You didn't lose your value when you lost your role. You only lost the role that once made your value visible. 8. When you are no longer needed, you are still here. If you've been carrying this loss quietly, the loss of being needed, let this moment stay with you. Not to fix it, not to rush past it, just to acknowledge it. What you're feeling is real. Losing a role can feel like losing yourself, especially when that role once gave meaning to your days, your choices, your sense of place in the world. And no one prepared you for the silence that comes after. No one talked about the grief of no longer being leaned on. No one asked how it feels to step back and not be called forward again. So you learned to carry it alone. But hear this gently. Your life did not lose its meaning when others stopped needing you. Meaning does not disappear when usefulness fades. It changes its shape. You are still here, still breathing, still carrying a lifetime of presence, depth, and understanding that was never meant to be measured only by what you provide. You don't need to prove yourself again. You don't need a new role right now. You don't need to explain this loss. For this moment, it is enough to exist without being needed. To rest in who you are, not what you do for others. And if no one has said this to you lately, let it be said here. You mattered then. You matter now. Even in this quiet, even in this pause. You are still here. And that is not nothing.